Hi, this is something I've been thinking more and more about lately, so I thought I would make a video about it. It's basically, how I feel about being stealth and the various, I think, good things and bad things that I've experienced while living as stealth. And so when I say that I'm stealth, I mean that I don't tell people that I'm trans who don't already know. So I still have a lot of people in my life who I knew pre-transition, and yeah, I mean, that's a lot of my friends, the people who I met pre-transition. So obviously they know. I mean, there's no way for them not to know unless I pretty much disappeared and stopped contact with them, which is not something that I wanted to do. And I feel like, at least, people who knew me pre-transition, I would rather them see that I've transitioned and would have their own judgment about that, but still being able to see me as I am currently compared to their memory of me pre-T. So, aside from those people, I don't tell people that I'm trans unless I think that it's their business. And this is a big part of why I'm stealth, is because being trans, to me, I see it as a medical condition, and I don't know, it's kind of a personal thing to me. It's not that I'm ashamed of people knowing, I just don't think that everybody needs to. A big part of transitioning for me and a lot of other trans people, although not all trans people, is being able to live your life normally without having to constantly think about every day that you're trans. Like, a lot of people transition because it's closer to how they feel that they should have been in the first place. It's kind of getting back to almost like this neutral part, whereas for all of our lives we've been in like this negative zone. So once you get to that point where you have been transitioning for a while, and socially you go about the world as male, you just like the normalcy of it, the fact of this is how it should have always been, and now this is what it's like, and you can just almost like be comfortable. But the drawback of that is you know that you're trans, and therefore there are a lot of situations where if people don't know, it can be a little bit awkward. It can be like minor situations, like for example, if I'm talking about what school I went to, I'm more likely to tell them about the more recent one that I graduated from instead of the primary school that I went to, because that was a private girls' school. And it kind of just brings up these questions of, if people try to piece things together, sometimes it won't make sense if they just see you as a cis male, for example. Or another one is like if I wanted to talk about my sexuality and how, the trajectory of it, where when I realized that I like women, and then when I realized that I also like men, and it kind of doesn't, you have to leave some details out, which you don't necessarily want to do, you just want to be able to talk openly. And then obviously the biggest thing that it gets in the way of is sexual relationships with people, or even starting to get involved sexually with somebody. You have to tell them. And it's just uncomfortable going from this spot where they don't know to have to, do something to let them know. Like, it has to become like this moment, which I've talked to many other trans people about this, and it's not fun. Like, you don't want to have this, oh, hey, I have to tell you something kind of thing. But, as I've thought of it, and as other people have agreed with me, it goes from being something so casual to being something so intimate, so unnecessarily. And it frustrates me as a trans person that I have to do this all the time. But at the same time, I don't want to live my life with everybody knowing that I'm trans all the time, because while there are a lot of people who are accepting, there are a lot of people who are not. And whether it's just not respecting you, not respecting your gender, or making you feel uncomfortable by never really seeing you as who you are, misgendering you, or even to the extent of being abused for it, it's not something that you just want to subject yourself all the time. And a lot of people don't agree with this point of being stealth. They think that you should be open and proud about being trans, and I'm not embarrassed of being trans. I just don't want my life to revolve around that all the time. I don't want people to constantly think of me as like the trans person. I want them to understand that there is more to me than that. And on a more selfish level, I just want to be treated as male because I am male. And most people, maybe not most people, but a lot of people, once they find out a trans person is trans, they think of them as the trans male, not as male. And you don't want to have to be like treated differently, basically, for being trans. And that's what happens. Luckily, with most of my close friends, they do treat me as male. Obviously, they understand it. But, a lot of acquaintances and stuff, I don't know. It's hard for me to judge because I don't want to ask people how they feel about me, but you can kind of tell sometimes when they like misgender you and things like that they still haven't quite transitioned in their mind, whereas people that I meet after transition, they just, he, male, like they just understand and they just know and they don't question it. And that's something that, well, at least me, pre-T, definitely wanted. Like, I just, you've been missing this. You haven't been able to really live your life as the gender that you were. And now that you can, you don't want to compromise it. I don't know, it's really hard to explain every reason why I'm stealth, but my biggest thing about it is just not having to live my life constantly telling people that I'm trans or talking about the fact that I'm trans. Like, this is what this channel is for, and what, I have certain aspects of my life where it's a more prominent feature, but in my casual, interactions with people, I don't think it needs to be something that they know or that they consider. It's like, the easiest way, it really is to think, when you think about it as a medical condition, it's not like you hide that from everybody ever, but you don't really tell people unless it's necessary, or unless you feel comfortable doing so. I've made videos about depression and anxiety before, and I still have those things, but it's not something that I really talk about with people because those things are quite personal to me. And I don't think many people need to know unless maybe I'm trying to, share experiences with them because they're going through the same thing, or, we can just discuss it in general. Or maybe if we were in a serious relationship with each other and, it would kind of explain a lot of my behaviours and ways of thinking and ways that I live my life. But outside of that, people don't need to know about my medical conditions. Like, that's just how I see it. A big part of it is privacy. And I think that trans people should have the right to privacy of not having their identity and medical history on display. The biggest drawback that I've noticed in being stealth is really just having to have that moment where you tell people when it becomes necessary for them to know. And that's something that I've still, every time I have to do it, I kind of dread, just because you can't always know how they'll react. But thankfully, pretty much everybody that I've had to tell has been quite good about it, accepting. And then I have noticed that after that you do feel a sense of relief of, now I'm not hiding this thing from them that they were going to find out eventually. But at the same time, sometimes I worry that their perception of me is then changed, which probably it has. Sometimes maybe it has changed for the better, and sometimes maybe it hasn't, because that's not something that they are comfortable with dealing with. But yeah, that's the major negative part that I've seen it. But I have thought about it a few times, whether I should just tell certain people straight away or mention it in conversation, but I think I'm more comfortable living this way, living stealth, and the people who I want to know can know on my own terms. That being said, I think even though I am stealth, that people still find out that I'm trans by other means, usually through friends of friends, which is something I can't completely control. But I don't like that happening so much because I feel like it's not other people's place to tell. but sometimes it can be a little bit easier if, you know, they hear it from somebody else and they hear somebody else being comfortable with it. So yeah, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to get these thoughts out about it, and, you know, show also that it's not that being stealth versus being out is like one isn't better than the other, but there are certain aspects to it that different people might be able to appreciate, or that they might be looking for. So there you go. Okay, thank you for listening to me ramble. I'll see when I can make another video. I don't know, I'll just do it as the thoughts come to me. But yeah, bye.